we ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? I'm not ready. Yeah, can I just borrow yours for a minute? Okay, we're ready to get started, sort of. I'm sorry to start a few minutes late. We were in executive session. It went just a little bit longer than planned, but welcome everybody and thank you for coming to the board meeting tonight. We do have all of our board members here tonight, as well as superintendent and business administrator, and we welcome our district staff and union representatives and the public for coming tonight, so thank you. We're going to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everybody could please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We like to start out each board meeting with some good news and district recognition, and each month we recognize a different school from the district, and tonight we have the pleasure of having Tooele High School here for recognition. So I would like to turn the time over to Principal Jeff Ham, and we appreciate you coming, and we'll let you go ahead and wow us with your awesome people.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to address this way or this way. Does it? Anyway, well, I'll talk to you guys.
You're supposed to address us, but we know that you're talking to them for this, so we're okay.
Well, we want to thank you guys for this opportunity. We appreciate the opportunity to welcome here. Apparently there was some miscommunication with our orchestra teacher. She texted me just now and said, Mr. Ham not going to make it in time tonight, but it's okay. I've asked Mrs. Goss to sing the school song a cappella. So I'll turn the time over to Donna, and then we'll get going on this thing. I don't know if we got our signals crossed. Anyway, that is the orchestra number tonight. I apologize. I'm going to start with, I actually want to start with Peyton, if you want to come up. And so, Peyton, we were asked, we had an extremely difficult task to pick one out of our 1,857 students enrolled at Tooele High School. And as we went through the students back and forth, up and down, 9 through 12, looked at different things, my mind always kept coming back to Peyton, and as we talked about it, he was the man. And so just really, I asked his mother just to type up some stuff, and you know how proud mothers are. So this is the abridged version. I just want you to know that, okay? I did go through, and this is the ESPN highlights of Peyton at Tooele High School. So I'll just share some of her words. Peyton has experienced more in his lifetime than most kids his age, and very likely the majority of adults for that matter. He has had his share of challenges, obstacles, and disappointments, but above it all, he has had many successes. Peyton was born with Apert syndrome. Am I saying that correctly? But that is not at all who he is or what defines him. Peyton has had over 30 major surgeries since he was born to allow him to see, speak, eat, walk, breathe, grow, develop, and to use his hands and his fingers. Peyton has a harder time than most with day-to-day tasks and simplicities that many of us take for granted, but he doesn't ever let it show, and he has not allowed these things to be an obstacle or an excuse in his life. Instead, Peyton approaches each day with a positive attitude accompanied by a very contagious smile. He has a happy-go-lucky, can-do attitude, and with Peyton, if there is a will, there is definitely a way. Peyton loves to be helpful, he is kind-hearted, and he is a friend to everyone he meets. Peyton loves school, and he has so much school spirit and pride. If you haven't been to a THS basketball game and seen him cheering on the team, you're missing the biggest display of school spirit of anyone in the bleachers. And Peyton does serve and has served as our basketball manager, boys basketball team manager for several years, and does a terrific job. Above all things, he looks forward to THS basketball season and being a team manager. He takes genuine pride in his responsibilities and the team. He never misses a game unless it is completely unavoidable, and he never wants to let Coach Johnson down. It goes on and on and on, and I could, had I invited, I could have had 100 teachers and 100 kids come and speak on Peyton's behalf, because he's such a terrific spirit and joy to be around in school every day. His smile is infectious. The thing I the thing I remember most, when I called your mother the day, Peyton wasn't there, so I called his mother first, and it was a big day for him because he'd just been asked to prom on the very same day.
Ooh.
So big things were happening, and so without further ado, would just like to congratulate Peyton on being our student recognition.
Now, Peyton, and this goes for everybody else too, we'd love to shake your hand if you would walk down the aisle here and shake our hands. We have a little gift for you from the foundation as well. You can just come right in front right here.
I want to know if he owns any other shirts other than purple colored shirts. I love that he's got purple on tonight.
Purple is what he's supposed to have.
That's right.
He's Tooele.
Oh, yes, okay.
Good job, Peyton. You should introduce your family to us. Make us cry.
Come here, I'll pass the mic to you, and you can tell us who's here visiting with you tonight, okay? Just talk into that mic.
I've got my family here with me tonight. I've got to say, I've got my mom and my dad.
Awesome.
Thank you, Peyton. Well done. I'll next invite, I guess I can go in any order. Doesn't matter?
Whatever
Okay.
you want, yep.
Well, don't tell me that.
This is your one chance.
I know, right? Don't screw it up. Mrs. Lorton, I'll invite you to come up. So Mrs. Leah Lorton teaches AP Calc and Math 3 for us at Tooele High. And the Calc gets divided up into A's and B's and C's and stuff, but we'll just call it AP Calc for tonight. But she is a terrific teacher. And one story that immediately comes to my mind when I think of Mrs. Lorton is last year when it was 2 years ago. I guess it was 2 years ago. We had a new teacher come in, and we were out of classrooms in the high school building. And so the new math teacher was going to have to go out in the portable. Somebody was. And Mrs. Lorton, without hesitation, volunteered her classroom in the building so that the new teacher could be in the building telling me, you know what, they need it much worse than I do. And she herself volunteered to go out into the portable. It's no easy chore to teach, but it's especially no easy chore to teach in the portable, especially when it snows.
Yep.
And your door freezes shut and you can't open and close it. So I mean, that's one thing that comes to mind about her. Also with Mrs. Lorton, as we solicited nominations for Teacher of the Year, she was the one person who we got multiple nominations coming in from both the classified side, the certified side, students, teachers, everywhere. So a real tribute to her. The other thing that really stands out, I won't read my whole letter of recommendation that I wrote for her, but I'll just share a couple of things. So the other thing I think about when I think of Leah is how she handles adversity. This is her 6th year in the district, is that right? During those 6 years, she's had 3 deaths in her immediate family. Mom, dad, and ex-husband have all passed away during that time. And so and never, to Leah's credit, the consummate professional, never missed a beat in all of that time. So really appreciate this is how you make things happen. You threatened to have Mrs. Goss sing a cappella. She is on the phone right now. And the orchestra magically appears. So,
We don't know
well, well, I don't know where they came from, but well done. Good job. So, good job. Just want to from Park City. Okay. Wow. That's good. Just want to share a couple other thoughts about Leah while they're setting up. Mrs. Lorton has actually taught math for 25 years all over Utah and Virginia, from Provo to Roanoke, from Spanish Fork to Botatort. Botatot. You say potato, I say potato. From West Valley to Tooele, Leah has basically taught all levels of math from grades 7 through 12. Leah is a master teacher who has a unique way of bringing math to life for all of her students and then motivating each of them to achieve their potential. She does her best to ensure that all kids are engaged and on task all of the time, simply by making the curriculum interesting. Mrs. Lorton always goes above and beyond every single task we have ever given her, and she does an outstanding job of seeing each task through to fruition. A member of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, has also attended 2 AP institutes and 2 core academies over her time in Tooele County School District, and has 2 master's degrees, an MA in math and an MS in curriculum and instruction. So just a super humble teacher, and embodies everything Teacher of the Year should be all about. So want to congratulate you. Yeah, we can take a commercial break, so that would be awesome. Yeah.
And where's
Thank you.
That was like an island or something.
But by West Virginia.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Go ahead. I was going to sing to it, but you go ahead.
Great job.
So Mrs. Amanda Poland is our new orchestra teacher, new this year, and I'll invite her up to introduce her terrific, it's a quintet counting you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a quintet, so. And don't run off, because you guys need to take a bow when she introduces you, so don't be standing there holding stuff. Don't have your hands full when she introduces you, just.
All right, our cello player is Aspen Walker, right? Yeah, Aspen Walker. And then viola, the best instrument, is Seth Jones. And then our second violinist today was Jalen Overy. And then our first chair and concert master for chamber orchestra is Michaela Comer. We played a piece called Romanian Folk Dances, and it's by Bella Bartok, and it was actually arranged by somebody I worked with up in Logan before I came here. It's pretty fun.
Thank you. Not that we weren't excited to hear Mrs. Goss sing, but thanks for coming. It was awesome.
I have enough time to work that into
Next
the
time.
program still, if you want. Okay. I just wanted to, Leah didn't get a chance to tell us who's here with her tonight, so I just wanted you to take that opportunity to let us know who's here with you tonight.
My 4 children, whom I'm very proud of. Jason, he's a senior at Tooele. Paul, he's a freshman. Owen, who's at North Lake. And then Shannon, she's down at Snow College.
Awesome. Thanks.
And I see several of Mrs. Lorton's peers in the audience here to support her, so thank you for being here tonight as well. I'll next invite Emily Spinlove up. So probably the biggest obstacle I've had to overcome in working with Emily is that she's Matt Jackson's sister. And so I try every day not to hold that against her. Some days are easier than others, but Emily does a terrific job. She, when I remember when I was summoned to Tooele High School, Emily was the very first one to come introduce herself to me, and I didn't know who she was. Captain Jack Sparrow. I didn't know who she thought she was or was supposed to be, but she said, "I'm Emily Spinlove, and you'll get to know me." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, whatever." And yeah, that's right. That's why I use that analogy. Exactly. And so then my immediate response to her was, the sooner you learn to read my mind, the smoother the finance office is going to work. And I'll give her some credit. She's done a pretty good job. She's done a pretty good job. I liken her position to the center in football in the finance office, because the center in football can have 999 good snaps, and on the 1,000th snap, if they fumble it, everybody wants to know who is that idiot snapping the football. So every time, it doesn't happen often, and Emily does a really good job. I call her the conscience when we don't. Sometimes she'll say, "I wouldn't do that if I was you," and we'll talk about it. And so she usually gets the better of me. Just a couple things about Emily. This is her 11th year at Tooele High School. Emily is homegrown. One of our own who has worked her way up through the ranks over the years. Started out in the fall of '06 as a part-time substitute secretary in the attendance office. Eventually became a permanent part-time gig because of her efficiency and work ethic. In '08, she started filling in for full-time people in the attendance office, which then evolved into a permanent position as the attendance secretary. Moved up the ranks and is now currently the finance secretary at Tooele High School. She handles all the local monies, and we often get visits from Shauna Gerling, and I usually peek in and ask, who's learning from who here? Is Shauna here to see, or is Shauna here to reprimand us or here to see us? So, Emily has a really difficult job that no one really fully appreciates, usually until the moment that they need something. And that's the moment when Emily comes through and gets things done. She has a great attention to detail and always follows the processes and protocols we've laid out for her, which makes all of our lives so much easier at Tooele High. One of the things I appreciate most about Emily is that she always goes above and beyond her assigned tasks and completes them through to fruition. The last story I'll tell about her is when I got there, we have a little gaggle of secretaries. There's 7 of them, and we needed an office manager. And so as we looked for that and interviewed for that, Emily was the clear choice to lead all of our secretaries and office managers. So she does a lot of things outside the finance office too, from helping us run report cards at report card time to participating in her office staff meetings. She's the voice for those secretaries. So just articulated a lot of nice things that she does and have many nice things to say about her, but rock bottom line is she handles that a very difficult job professionally every single day, having to deal with parents, teachers, students, and everybody else. So appreciate her. Want to congratulate her on a job well done.
Emily, would you come back here for a second? After you shake. We have more. We have more for you. Go ahead and shake their hands and then come right back here. So Emily doesn't know this, but I'm honored to inform her and you as a board member that after we have every year a committee that meets together and looks at employees of the year, and we have great, Emily's a member of TESPA, so with TESPA we have our previous winner of Classified Employee of the Year and a committee that gets together. And I'm pleased to announce that Emily has been chosen as our District Employee of the Year. So we recognize the hard job. Our TESPA families, I mean, we've got cooks, we've got secretaries, we've got mechanics. I'm forgetting some of the families I know. Jennifer's she'll scold me later, but you know, we've got mechanics and cooks and bus drivers, and all of these folks are so necessary and important. They're safe for our kids to talk with, and they do a great job. We couldn't teach and do what we do in the classroom without support professionals, our wonderful support professionals. So congratulations, Emily. And I know that your staff didn't know that. I don't even think Mr. Ham knew that, but we wanted to congratulate. It does come with a $1,000 honorarium stipend. So
So you can claim it now.
only spend on shopping and not share with your husband, right?
Sweet. Just make sure Russ knows that's yours.
I just told him.
Yeah.
So I have my husband here tonight, and I guess I can count my brother, even though he was going to be here anyway. But
No, he came just for you.
oh, sweet.
For you.
Thank you.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Good job. Okay. Last but not least, we have our volunteer. Stacy is here. I knew Stacy was racing from Park City. I did not connect the dot about the orchestra. I knew the band was up there. I did not connect the dot about the orchestra. But thank you for sitting in the back corner. So, like when you give in the prayer in church, you start walking down. So Stacy Smart is our choice as our choice for volunteer at Tooele High School, and I just have she works mostly with band, but she works with me too. But I asked Mr. Landis to write down a few nice things about her and just want to share some of that. Stacy Smart is an indispensable part of everything that happens at Tooele High School. Mrs. Smart hails from Tooele. While attending Tooele High School, she was involved in many clubs and activities, most notably band and color guard. She spent countless hours rehearsing with the band, donating her time and talents to the program. She even met her husband, Jeff Smart, while attending Tooele High School. And he's here tonight, so we'll recognize him. Following her high school days, she attended Utah State University. She continued to be a part of philanthropic organizations while attending school at USU. She fostered a great love for service. When she returned to her hometown, she brought that love with her. Mrs. Smart is currently employed with Communities That Care, an organization that seeks for a better community for those in and around the Tooele City community. She donates time to the city of Tooele to help with their philanthropic work. There is hardly a beneficial community project that she does not know about or have some sort of involvement with. She volunteers countless hours at Tooele High School. One of the organizations that she spends the most time with is the Tooele High School Band Program. She has been the band booster president for over 7 years. And this is a direct quote from Mr. Landis, our new band director. "There is no way the band program could get anything done without Stacy!" Exclamation point. She is at every event. She plans meals for all the band members. She makes sure students have everything they need. Because of her countless hours, her countless service hours, her tireless efforts, and continued unfailing support of Tooele High School, she is our nominee for Volunteer of the Year. And just a couple more things. Stacy, in addition to all of that, she sits on our community council and has since I've been there for the past 3 years. And she also is the utility player every time we need a parent volunteer on interview committees. So she's helped us out in a lot of different ways, and just want her to know how much we appreciate her and all that she does for Tooele High School. So, this is for you. And if you want to go shake hands and then come tell us who's here.
Maybe we can have you and Jeff sing the school song.
Oh, introduce Jeff. Well, Jeff's already been introduced, but there's my husband, wonderful husband. Go THS band.
Thank you for this opportunity. We appreciate the time.
Thank you. You know, it's hard being a principal, especially a high school principal. There's a lot of work involved in that, and we appreciate your leadership at Tooele High School, and thanks for bringing these awesome people to our attention. Thanks for coming tonight. Another big hand for Tooele High School. And everybody that's here from Tooele High School is welcome to stay, but you are also welcome to leave if you need to. It's all right. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, in our pursuit of considering a 4-day school week for Vernon Elementary, Ibapa Elementary, and Dugway schools, we thought it would be best to have a public hearing just to let people have their voices be heard. So we have had 5 people sign up to speak at the public hearing. Yeah, I counted right. Had to double check. Sorry. We'll give you about 3 minutes to share your thoughts, and remembering this is just in regards to the 4-day school week. So Mr. Bryant will be our timekeeper, and when you first come up, if you could state your name into the microphone just so we have it on our public record, that would be awesome. We'll start with Norma Naranjo. First is awesome.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education and Superintendent Rogers. I'm Norma Naranjo, and I'm the Education Coordinator for the Confederated Tribes of the Goshute Reservation in Ibapa, Utah. And Rachel Parker was unable to attend tonight and sends her regrets. I'm here to express the opinion of the tribal members and ranching community in support of a 4-day school week. The 3 main reasons for a 4-day school week at Ibapa Elementary School are, number 1, it would limit the time our children are out of school for doctor, dental, and other appointments. Living in a remote area, it takes hours and not minutes to take children to their appointments. Ivapah is an hour to Wendover and 3 hours to, a total of 3 hours to Salt Lake City. This means instead of a half-day absence, it's a whole day absence. And if we have one day off, parents could schedule appointments on that day and would help with student attendance. Number 2, the shorter week would also eliminate teacher and school staff absence and the need for substitutes. Number 3, the 4-day week would also allow the Native American Indian community to more fully participate in cultural activities in other communities and sometimes other states. Cultural enrichment is an important part of establishing a healthy self-esteem for our children, and this eliminates the need to take children out of school early. We are also a ranching community. Students assist their families in many tasks related to ranching. We have seasons that the whole family participates in ranching activities that they're needed for. Traditions of hard work and learning to respect the land and care for animals is a virtue that builds character. A shortened week would only strengthen student skills by cutting down on absenteeism. We feel for these reasons, the Deep Creek Ivapah community is respectfully requesting a 4-day school week. I'd also like to invite you all out to our school, if you haven't been out there, and a tour of the reservation. And I'd even treat you to an Indian taco dinner, so take me up on it. I've made well over 5,000 pieces of fried bread in my lifetime, so I know what I'm doing. That's a promise. Anytime you come out, give me a couple hours notice and you've got it. So that's my spiel, and I know that you're in support of it, and I hope that if you do decide to come out, I don't know who our board member is for our area. You are? Oh, great. We would like you guys to come out and visit us and visit the reservation and see some of our unique challenges that we have out there, as well as the beauty of our community too. So thank you.
Thank you,
And
Norma.
come visit us.
It's always fun to visit Ivapah Elementary. Thank you. I'm going to pause for 1 second and just welcome the scouts that just showed up. Oh, from Carol's neck of the woods. Are you working on a specific merit badge? Communications. Hopefully we model good communications for you while you're here then. Thanks. Okay, next is Shane D. Owen.
Ladies and gentlemen of the school board superintendent, thank you for your time. I know I'm going to sound like I'm a little emotional in my voice, but I don't do well at public speaking. Just not my forte. This is also in for support the 4-day school week to include for Dugway Proving Ground. I don't know if who have all been out there. Some of your faces do look familiar, and I do appreciate your attendance to Dugway. As it was explained to me that we needed to list reasons without convenience. I hope I can convey that message in my reasonings. Number 1, cost. I did a rough schematic of a price breakdown with Principal Wyatt, and based on about a $1 figure for everything across the board, it will save the school district about $1 million and so. Which I know that the state education level, they've been looking at saving costs for schools as well. How can we save more money and give the students more? 2, Big Army wants to minimize its carbon footprint. By going to a 4-day school week, this will help Tooele County School District also to minimize their carbon footprint. It would also increase or have a less absenteeism from the students. Friday is a very popular day for students to miss. Why? Because the majority of the workforce on Dugway Proving Ground is a 4-day work week. Having said that, a 4-day school week does not benefit me or my family at all whatsoever. I work nights and weekends. It's the nature of the beast. However, I have to be concerned with the benefit of the majority and not the benefit of a few. So I support this as a parent. Secondly, let's be realistic. Teachers are humans and teachers are people too. This would give teachers more time at home with their families. And we need to be concerned about the welfare of the teachers as well. I really believe that. Secondly, or Nextly, it would be another attractive selling point to retain and to get teachers to come out to Dugway Proving Ground. Let's be realistic. Who wants to drive through Johnson's Pass in the middle of wintertime? I don't. That's why I live out there, because I did it one winter and that was it for me. I decided to move out there, you know. So, but having said that, through the winter, a 4-day school schedule would be a really attractive benefit to a lot of teachers who are looking for a place to go. Dugway is a great place to work. It is a great place to live, and it's got a great school system out there. One of the things that I also came up with is savings. It's going to minimize the heat and air conditioning costs throughout the year for the school because of the 4th day not being there. Cost of fuel for the buses will be minimized to only having to be spent for 4 days now instead of 5. Minimizing the cost of the district vehicles for the bus drivers and the principal and all other staff that have the privileges of a district vehicle. Thus, it's going to be saving the school district money and ultimately taxpayers' money. Cost of supplies for cleaning or other maintenance supplies that are needed throughout.
You can finish your thought.
Thank you, ma'am. Cost of the food services and would be minimized for only having to pay for 4 days. And as well, the one other thing was the cost of the logistical needs for another bus during field trip activities and or sporting events. These are what I have. I appreciate your time. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to talk afterwards.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Rice Olson? Rick? Rick. I'm sorry. What is your name? Rick Olson. Did you write this?
Yeah, whatever you want to
Okay.
call me is fine. That's right. Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to share a few words. Yeah, my name is Rick Olson, a resident of Vernon. You've heard a lot from us from Vernon over the past few months. So, my wife and I currently have a daughter attending Vernon Elementary in the 1st grade. We also have a 2-year-old boy who will attend Vernon Elementary in the future. In regards to the consideration of 4-day school week at Vernon Elementary, it is the opinion of the majority of our town's parent committee that we support this proposed change. Also, the survey issued by the school district to the people of Vernon over the past few months showed majority support for the 4-day school week. On a personal note, I would echo words that have been shared previously tonight in regards to a ranching community. My family and I, that's our business, farming and ranching in multiple states. The 4-day school week idea would definitely be would be beneficial to our busy ranch schedule, and I know there's others that would echo the same. We appreciate the consideration and once again are very supportive from Vernon. Thank you.
Thank you. Luke Thomas.
My name is Luke Thomas, and it's nice to see some familiar faces. Graduate of Vernon Elementary School. Four students graduated from there with me. 1999 Tooele High School graduate. Graduated with Julia Holt's son, one of my very best friends in high school. Played basketball together. Also have 2 students in Vernon Elementary School, and one that will be a kindergartner next year. As you can see, I'm also an educator at Tooele School District, and I want to emphasize that my children go to Vernon Elementary School, and that's where they will remain. I have nothing but good things to say about my experience at Tooele High School and being a part of the district. I also have nothing but good things to say about teaching in a district that has a 4-day school week. I'm the athletic director and also have coached multiple sports there. An example, I guess, in the 4-day is prior to that, I missed a lot of instructional time as a teacher, as an educator, to go to Wendover and to Dugway. We'd leave at 11:30 or 12. Since we have gone to a 4-day school week, I have not missed an instructional day of teaching my students, and our students have not missed instructional time to go to participate in extracurricular activities. I feel like that is a huge benefit to our education system and allowing those children to get the things that they need. And so I would say, since I've been there, I think this is about our fifth or sixth year of 4-day school week. I know there is, evidence both directions for a 4-day school week. I would agree with that. But our academics, we probably had the highest ACT scores that we've ever had for our small district this last year, in the last 2 years. So I believe that there are some positives, but I also believe that it's unique to each culture and to each school, and I don't think there's any red carpet that way. So that's 4-day, but my real purpose, and I think I was on the open forum, but hopefully I can say this as well, but I guess my main priority is just to be a voice for Vernon Elementary. I hope that this board, and I believe they do, there's some amazing people, is that they recognize how important children are, and they make decisions based on our children, no matter where they live. And we would love to see a school building built out there. I'm all about statistics, and the Rush Valley turnoff is 16 miles to Vernon, and it's 14 miles to Settlement Canyon Elementary. And I think that, I know logistically and fiscally conservative people have to make smart decisions fiscally, but I also know how important the NEST money is and how things work, and I hope that in your decisions in the future that you might think about those things that might benefit those children in that area, and to be able to build a school that, our district built a 15,000 square foot building 2 years ago for just about $2.2 million. And I believe we don't need a building as big as that building that could facilitate growth and allow our children to have that kind of education and to realize the impact that it can make on a community. And so I hope that was the main thing I wanted to touch on, is that I am an educator, and I do know that I work at Tooele School District, and I hope that if you have any questions, I've experienced what a 4-day is, and we would be more than willing, and myself included, to answer any questions. But to know that we want to do what's best for our kids in Vernon, and I appreciate that you have kept our school open and will continue to do that. And I just appreciate your time, and again, please just do what's best for our kids, and I know that you will, and thanks so much.
Thanks, Luke. Okay, and Rachel Gardner. Is this 4-day or? Okay.
Hi, I'm Rachel Gardner. I'm a proud Army wife. We're stationed at Dugway Proving Ground. I'm also a mom to a Dugway Elementary kindergartner, and I am the science teacher for the secondary side at Dugway High School. I know that as we saw last month, the state, or you guys, the school board here for Tooele, has decided to move on and take to the state our 4-day school week, for which we're very grateful. My purpose here tonight is just to provide some research for you, because I know we have to have a sound case to try and convince the state school board. So I did some research and I've compiled it for you, but I wanted to share some of the highlights that I thought were most important. There are lots of financial benefits. Some of those have been touched upon and they're definitely relevant, but I want to focus on what I think is the most important, which are teacher and student benefits. For teachers, longer class periods give teachers flexibility to organize lessons more effectively and incorporate more varied teaching lessons. Being a teacher who does labs, I know an extra 15-20 minutes a day would be so thrilling. Teachers have claimed in studies that less time is wasted during the 4-day school week, leaving more time for instruction. Anecdotal evidence suggests that teachers are able to manage their time efficiently because their instruction is more focused, and longer lesson blocks enhance curriculum continuity. In New Mexico, 18 of the state's 89 school districts are on a 4-day school week. Staff recruitment has become easier because a 4-day week was more attractive to prospective teachers. This is especially important in rural communities such as Dugway, where attracting and retaining quality staff has historically been difficult. Now, please note, I'm not complaining. I love what I do and I'm passionate about it. But since we became transferred to Dugway Proving Ground, I took a $15,000 pay cut as a teacher. Myself and my fellow core teachers at Dugway High School teach 6 preps a day. I don't commute, fortunately, because my husband's Army, so we're required to live on Dugway, but most of my coworkers do commute from Tooele and Grantsville. It's a lot. Between those factors, it's hard to draw teachers of quality to come out to schools like Dugway and Ibapaw and Wendover and to keep them there. So we need that alternate enticement to sweeten the pot, so to speak. I also think that increased isolation pay is another benefit that will work to that effect. Student benefits. 4-day school weeks may lead to better attendance, and anecdotal evidence has suggested this to be the case. And of course, we know higher attendance means better outcome on general academics and standardized tests. It has been reported that students are less distracted, exhibit improved morale, and behave better on a shortened week schedule. It gives parents the opportunities to schedule medical and other necessary appointments on their school's day off instead of on regular school days. And this has potential to reduce student absenteeism and is particularly important for those of us who live in rural communities because it's a full day to get to town and to do what needs to be done. It also permits flexibility in the event of weather-related school cancellations. We can reschedule missed days on those 5th days instead of having to extend the school year. Using data from the Colorado Department of Education, where 60 of the 178 school districts utilize a 4-day school week, positive relationships were found between the 4-day school week and the percentage of elementary school students scoring at the proficient and advanced levels on math and reading achievement tests. 65% of secondary school students from the Shelley School District in Idaho reported that they had more time to complete schoolwork and to prepare for class after their district switched to the 4-day school week. I provided a few facts and figures for you guys to peruse and hopefully use as you're gathering your data, and I really appreciate your time to allow me to share that with you.
Thanks, and we'll make sure everybody gets a copy. Thank you. Okay, those were the only people we had signed up, so thank you.
Madam President, just a couple comments for the record.
Hold on
if I
just a
could.
second. Hold on
Okay,
just a second.
go ahead.
So thank you for sharing, and I did just want to say also that like I don't know who mentioned it, it has to go to the state now and be approved by the state. So we have Mr. Ernst working on that, and we're hoping for the best because we voted last month to go ahead and go forward with moving on a 4-day week. So we just kind of have to wait for that process to finish now. So we appreciate your comments. We'll be able to share those and cross our fingers, I guess. Superintendent.
So more on that, what this comes down to, because I came from Idaho, and Idaho had the 990-hour instruction rule. The problem in Utah is we have a 180-day rule as well as the 990 rule. So what you're asking, and what we're asking the state board to do, just so that people understand, is to waive that requirement because it's not 180 days. And so we need to I just want to make sure that we go in with our eyes open. Number one, when we're approved for a 4-day week, assuming that we are, it's not indefinite. You're approved in chunks of time. When I talked with Superintendent Hughes from Tintic, I think their first time was 2 years, and they got extended to 3 years. So you do have to make sure that you re-up, and you do have to put your money where your mouth is. If the kids slip in academics, the state board will not approve that or they'll put you on kind of a plan of improvement. Hopefully that won't happen, but you have to realize that it's not just, okay, once we're on, we're always on. We have to still make sure that we deliver. And of course, we're under that kind of accountability pressure right now anyway. And so the board, the administration, we're supportive of this. and we're putting together our facts. Frankly, when you look at white papers from, you know, your big players are Colorado, Montana, and Idaho that have the most numbers of 4-day schools, but we've looked at research out of University of Montana, out of Northwest Education Lab. It's kind of a mixed bag on the academic benefits. And what they say is most people went into 4-day week on the recession looking at trying to save money, but most districts didn't actually realize savings. So even though you can put pen and paper to it, there are other things. Now on the elementary side, they have seen savings. On the high school, the problem is that you can't ever seem to close a high school, and it's operating on Friday and it's operating on Saturday because it's got basketball games and basketball practice. So you don't benefit from that. Any savings you see, the majority of the savings you just need to be aware of come on the backs of bus drivers and cooks, because they don't run their bus routes, even though their bus routes could be a little bit longer, but they don't run their bus routes. They only run 4 times a week. So our bus drivers are going to see a cut in pay. And our cooks are going to see a cut in pay because they only, you know, will then cook 4 days a week. So that's a reality. I'm not saying it's something that you would make the decision, you know, because we're making a decision on what's best for kids, but there are some challenges with that, just like there is with any schedule. The biggest challenge at the high school is, and when I talked to Superintendent Hughes, he confirmed this, is you have to make instructional time sacred. You can't have your academic or your athletic teams leaving before, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock? What's the deadline on that? I'm just asking the gentleman from 2:30. So, you know, you can't jump on a bus from Dugway High School at 12 o'clock to be there at, I mean, they just don't do that. And so it takes some relearning and kind of readjusting. The financial savings, most of the research says, are around 1 to 2%. And they say don't do it for finances because it's best laid plans, but it never really materializes because there are other things that just happen. It also impacts teachers on the elementary side in terms of prep time. They don't receive prep time during the week. We try to give them, you know, weekly prep. They would receive it on that a Friday day because you're not going to. So we would have to relook at how we did PLC and data groups and that kind of a thing. It can be done, and you know, but you just have to know that going into it, that there are some pros and cons of this schedule. The 2 specific groups that this 4-day work week has not shown improvement for is early grades and ESL students. And the ESL students is simply that instead of having 5 days of the English language, they're only getting 4 days around their peers with the English language. Now, there can be things that are done to, you know, minimize those kind of issues. The younger children, it's just, you know, for the kindergarten, it's just the length of the day. It's the same discussion we had about, gosh, if we go from Vernon to Dugway and we're extending the day, that just wears on younger kids. But they're pretty resilient, a lot more resilient than we are, and they can get used to that schedule. So you know, we just need to make sure that we're aware and we have our eyes wide open as we go into this, that there are cons as well as pros. But I think if you're committed to doing what's right for kids, you can overcome, whether you're on a 4-day week or whether you're on a 4x4 or 5x5 or a 7-period day. There are schools in Utah and other states that do it well, and there are schools that don't do it well. So it's not the schedule that makes the power, it's how well the people implement the schedule to get the maximum benefit for kids. So I just thought that needed to be on record, and we appreciate the research, and we're going to do our best. The state hasn't always approved these. Tintic got approved. Paiute tried a 4-day week, and they got shot down. So we're doing, and you know, they weren't approved. So we're doing the best job we can to get letters of support, and we have a good data, and we're going to be tracking that and hope that our kids are going to benefit from that. So
I'm feeling optimistic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good.
And thank you for your comments too.
You bet.
We didn't have anybody sign up in the open forum. So we will move on to the consent items, which include the minutes, expenditure, revenue, and disbursement reports, personnel decisions, 150-mile contest, request for proposal for a GPS tracking system, and the fee schedule for 2018 and 19. Is there comment or a motion considering the consent items? Thanks for coming, everyone.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Carol and seconded by Kathy to approve the consent calendar. Is there discussion to that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Scouts.
Come again.
Okay, business administrators report. I feel like the room is so empty now.
I know. I think they thought it was over.
We better head home.
We should have told those Scots to stay longer.
It is clearing out, so
You can wait a second if you want.
no worries. Well, this month, as I thought about a topic to discuss with you, I thought about we've talked a bit about enrollment growth and what we had this last year, and I just thought it'd be a good idea to show you some of the internal struggles we had this year as we talked about it. And so maybe I'm actually, if I can take it away from Jim here, I know you have the PDFs in there. I'm not that PDFs don't work, but I like to show you the live spreadsheet. So, and before I do that, sorry, let me turn off these notifications so they don't interrupt this. I forgot to do that earlier. I apologize for this brief delay here. Yeah, so if you're curious on your device, those who have it, there you go. All right, wanted to show you, as you know, we usually give the schools a supply allocation, and we allow them to use it how they. Long story short, I view it this way: as long as they don't go over that bottom line, we're okay with it because they can spend it as they need. One school that's always has in the past traditionally talked to this, and I'm looking down at Bryce because I know I had a meeting with him last year, has been Blue Peak High School. Well, when it comes to enrollment, we've always based this off numbers, and so as I'm scrolling down here to secondary schools, you're going to see what I'm referring to. At Blue Peak, we added the addition of our online students, and you can see that's where the majority of our growth was this last year. They had over 2,000 students enroll in that. And so in the enrollment figures here, I actually asked how many of those are what we have in the past considered Blue Peak High School students versus those that are online. And the reason I wanted to show you this is you can kind of see out to the left in this column that's in yellow is what a school is allocated. And we base it off of numbers. So depending on how many students are in that classroom, this is based off October 1 enrollment counts, we can give them money. So because we've already passed October 1 of 2017, we base our next year's budget on that. And so this, what I'm showing you here, is our budget for next year for these schools. So if I was to simply show you, I'm just going to drag that formula down so you see if we continue to give $70 per student, which we have done traditionally in our school district, now Blue Peak Online becomes not only the largest school because they have the most numbers, but you can see it just greatly enhanced their budget up to $141,000.
Is there a school song you want to sing out there? Yeah.
So, a matter of fact, to the point that I even just me personally have asked how you're going to spend all that money. So what I wanted to show you was here's a traditional history. And you can see, well, because I have it linked there, you can also see how big of a change that would be. They went from, depending on the year, and hopefully the notes I made in there made sense. There's been some budget reductions and other things we've had in the past, but they've averaged between 13,300 being the high and 10,000 roughly being the low there, and that was in a budget cut year. As far as that goes, you can see that'd be a huge bump for them, and it comes down to a matter of how we spend it. So because this is something we had control over, you saw that was at $7 a student, and by doing that, we felt like that was a good thing because it's been something that they've been worried about. How do we have enough, supplies to take care of their needs there? And we felt like this was a good start. So I wanted you to kind of show the decision-making process that we had internally. Of course, we want them to grow. Of course, it's just a matter of how much growth becomes unrealistic. And I point that out because, as you're well aware, those 2,000 online students aren't actually physically at that school. So it becomes a change there for us. Well, I wanted you to see that background and see how much it would grow to talk about the next one, and that was trust lands, because we I just wanted to bring you up to speed. We tried the same thing with trust lands. And now trust lands comes to us. Long story short, they also base it off student numbers. But it's, in a roundabout way, it's the district student numbers. So if you divided every school, if we had one pie, one pot of money that comes to our school district for trust lands, they divide that up by slices of how large is your student body enrollment at that school. Knowing that, I was afraid of what would happen if we had one school grow by 2,000 students. In theory, if the pie size didn't change, you see where I was going with this, if the pie size didn't change, Blue Peak would therefore get more money at the expense of all the other schools, was the logic. But I wanted to show you how that was actually a positive thing for us this year, and so I need to jump over to this other spreadsheet where it breaks it out by school. Now the good thing is in these columns here I had just looking at I'm gonna make sure I find Blue Peak. It's up on the line up here. I wanted to show you their prior year allocation, and I'm going to scroll the bottom so you see the number I have highlighted here. We received $1.4 million in trust lands last year that are allocated to schools. This next year, it's going to grow by over $285,000 to 1.7. That growth was the key I want to get, because if you don't have a growing pie, you'll be in trouble. And we can thank the law that passed, I believe it was last year actually, if not 2 years ago, that allowed the school land trust to distribute more than just the interest. Now they get to distribute all earnings because they can invest in dividends and other things. Long story short, it sends more money to schools, so that's a good thing. And we were I wanted to show you that because my fear was, what would that do to us as a school district? And so I have the prior year this current year allocation, because they told us no when it came to our question of can we allocate, because they allow us to do that when we have boundary changes. They allow us to estimate, is a good word, what the student growth would be because of this boundary change, and you can reallocate money to schools. Well, using that logic, we thought, can we reallocate some of these online students to all the other schools so nobody gets hurt? In the long story short, we were told no. And so in running this, I wanted to point out that we had enough growth that it's actually going to be a good year for us. This was a perfect year for us to do it because of that growth. Long story short, because if you look down this prior year difference, there is no school that's actually taken a reduction. Granted, there's a small few ones, being in Vernon only $109 difference, Ibapaw $196, Dugway $703, but you get the picture there. But I do want to show you that Blue Peak High, I'm going to highlight the row now, and you're going to see got $211,000. So the
Mark,
good news to them.
I just have a question for you.
Yes.
So, of that, Madam Chair, of that
go ahead.
211,000, if we look at it, spending it not like that money goes into Blue Peak High. It's mostly driven up because of the online students that aren't there, but we also have some needs and some expenses to serve the online students, as far as, for example, paying teachers to teach an Edgenuity class and other things like that a regular community council doesn't have those kind of expenses, but we have those as a district. Could some of that go into helping offset the cost? I mean, the thing about Blue Peak Online is that we have that huge payment that goes to My Tech High that we don't have with the rest of our students. So I'm not saying we wouldn't distribute that, but can't we use some of that district-wide for those online students that I'm not saying we share that with the other community councils, but there are certain things that Blue Peak are covering for us for a district that benefit, for example, Grantsville High or Dugway High or whatever, when kids are going to be taking those online classes through Edgenuity. Is that, have you looked into that? Is that something that we could?
That's something we'll definitely work with
You
Bryce
can't.
and
Bottom
Kendall
line,
on.
don't you have to just present that to the community council?
Yep.
I mean, it all comes in what's presented to the community council.
I'm just saying it is totally a different way of thinking about it, because all of them are online students, and we have different kind of needs. So that community council is going to have to wrestle with that whole funding portion of how to offer that, electronically, digitally to those kids.
Yeah. good way of putting it. This community council will have a lot to discuss that they haven't in the past.
Julia
Because
has a question too.
because the thing I wanted to point out, and do you want to ask it right now,
No,
or
go ahead.
finish this thought really quick? Is trust lands can be a dual-edged sword, and I've said this every time. They tell you don't overspend, and they'll slap you on one hand, but they tell you if you don't spend it and they continue to see growth at this school, they'll slap the other hand. And so I've kind of told principals that I feel a little bit for them. It is a tightrope they're walking there, but I wanted to point that out because Blue Peak, it's great for them. The downside too is now they've got to rechange the way they think, and they got to make sure they spend it or they could get slapped on the hand. Long story short.
Julia.
So this is a little bit off topic, but so for our teachers that are teaching at Blue Peak High, how do we pay them? How does that fit into this whole?
There have been some wages that have been paid out of trust lands. Don't get me wrong. I want to point that out a lot. I think most of it in elementary schools, usually they do hire aides. But given that it's up to this community council, there are very few positions paid for out of trust lands, long story short.
But in the past, they haven't had enough money to even pay a salary, right? Or to hire an aide or do a productivity period or anything.
Are their teachers getting this? What is their contract? Is it the same as just a certified teacher that we hire?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that because some teachers that are paid by Blue Peak are alternate school. They get a regular contract like our regular teachers. But the online students through MyTech High, we actually don't hire the teachers. We contract with MyTech High. So, and then any of our teachers who want to, and I think, Brett, you're part of that, right? Teach online either at Utah Students Connect or at Edgenuity for us, get paid a stipend for those additional online hours. So we pay that out of it doesn't come from community council. It's just out of our general fund. So it's a little more varied than that.
Scott Bryan has a comment too.
I was just thinking about the community council and a suggestion, and I don't know what the rules are exactly around this, but recognizing that the vast majority of those students are online students, they're not attending a brick and mortar school. I might suggest that we think of a way or consider a way, maybe we're already doing that, of involving some of those electronics parents into the community council. Are you doing that already?
We've talked about it. Right now, to be bluntly honest, it's really tough to get parents onto the community council of Blue Peak. And so this is going to be fantastic because we will have parents guaranteed here in town in Tooele that are homeschooling that love.
The other thought I had was, especially because it's outreach, the network's not limited to our geography, the local community, that again, because it's a different technology, maybe we think out of the box. And are we willing to hold those meetings, electronically, or allow them to attend? They can be in, St. George and attend as a member of the community council via, electronically, and kind of think different.
Yeah.
And I just was going to encourage you to, consider those things, because the reality is the vast majority of those students are electronic.
See, a lot of Provo East School students, they use those funds through community council to pay for maker spaces and things like that for the kids that are in the school and you have to remember those 2,000 kids are K-12 from across almost every district in the state. But we've got them from down in Kanab and San Juan district to Granite to up north. And so, we're just gonna have to be creative with how we do a community council statewide.
And, we talked about the needs, and maybe those needs are a little different. Maybe it isn't necessarily even teachers, but maybe there's a need for, some technology help. An aid, if you will, that could provide, the computer, not provide computers, but the resources to help if they're having trouble logging in, or, just that technology person. And maybe that's those kind of things that would actually add value. It's an aid in a lot of ways. It aids that education, not in the traditional way being in a classroom, but they're there for, I can't connect. So there are some other things, and as that group becomes kind of thoughtful. And that's a lot of money to be able to use that for.
It's awesome. It's a lot of money.
We're going to have to give the registrar, we have one secretary for a school of 2,000. Now, they don't have to check in and out like they do at Tooele High, but there are more students than the Tooele High, and we have, bless her heart, Tanya Jones, that's doing everything secretarial and registrar, and so we may have to use some of that to get additional help to have those, students check in and get registered. And
Well, I'm sure as you do training and meet with the community council, that as soon as you start looking at its greatest needs, it usually is easy to figure out. So, yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions on trust lands? I just found it unique. Hope you found it interesting. It was just something that we had to, we were privileged to address this year, put it that way. And then as you saw in there, I wanted you to see it. I know it was going to be released, but I had it pulled up over here. Just wanted to talk about the press release we had going out because I mentioned it in another board meeting. And Marie's not here to. She had to talk with me afterwards. Said maybe I jumped the gun on it. So it's a good thing we got it finally released. I was there when she took that picture. It happens to be Mike Garcia in the very first trucks that we got right there. But we had a good article that I hope catches some eyes about the savings and our idea behind this, and just early feedback as some of these vehicles have been going out to schools have been positive. I'm not saying there's not questions that come in, but I think it's fun to see some people step out in a vehicle and they've been used to a hand-me-down, and they look at a brand new vehicle and to see their eyes light up a little bit. It can be kind of fun. So just wanted to let you know that was out. I know Marie did actually reach out to Tim, so I see him sitting there. So good news. Any questions on that? Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks for delivering good news.
absolutely.
Okay, Teaching and Learning Director's Report. Tricia Walker.
Great PowerPoint. Thanks. I know there's a lot of slides, but I'm not going to read all of them, so don't stress. I know. Bryce is giving me a hard time. There's only 18 of them. So I was excited. I was telling my team today, it's just exciting to be able to brag about some of the work that's being done. There's some great things happening. Lots of plates being juggled at one time, but I think that they're all for good reason. So real quick, I'm trying to highlight the departments that come underneath my umbrella, and the first one is the Beverly Taylor Sorensen Arts Learning Program. We do have the Utah Symphony coming out this week. That's pretty exciting. Denise Manzione, who's new to this role and to my team, has really done some phenomenal things. She does professional learning series on Mondays, and she has had such great attendance. So I really want to just recognize her for the work that she's done. We have a display. I don't know if you saw it over here. She actually built that table out of old wood from the old Dugway. So, I mean, she literally did it herself. She's just amazing. So she's doing some great things with our paras. We're going to be getting some recorders in with our new music teacher so that we can all go to recorder concerts. So that's pretty exciting. Curriculum next. As you can see, lots of things going on, and it never changes. We're looking at, what you don't see on here, this is what we've currently gotten done this year, but on the horizon is our K-5 science and our high school science at the same time. It's a little scary. And they are saying that they expect the standards to be accepted by November of next year. I mean, we'd still have about a year and a half to get people up to snuff with the new standards, but it's not so much about the standards as it is about the approach, which is what we're seeing in a lot of the standards revisions that's happening right now. But considering the size of the district, considering the fact that we have one person who works curriculum, it's pretty amazing the work that's gotten done. And I can't say enough about Chantel and the work that she does. The next slide is also the grants that she's been working on. I want to note one of the things on this list, the STEM Action Center Professional Learning, which is in progress. I'm really proud to say we actually have 2 in progress from my department right now, because just this week, our iMentors, our district mentors, have decided that they want to be able to do this grant as well, because there is a fear that our Title II monies are going away, which does a lot of our professional development for our new teachers. And this is an avenue that they're looking at, and I applaud them for jumping into this and investigating it and applying for this grant. So we actually will have 2 out of teaching and learning for this. And they don't compete with each other, which is great, because I was concerned if they were competing. In the next page, I just wanted to share, we do have a new system in place for course approvals. This is our first year. On our website, you'll also be able to see, and I have the link at the bottom of what that process is, and I just wanted to share why. The reason we have that process is we really wanted to clean up some of the courses that have been approved in the past and to make sure that those courses are aligned with USBE approved courses and that they are at the rigor that they need to be. In the past, I think courses were just submitted, and as long as we had a course code, we put them in. Now there's a system in place where by November of every year, if a new course is being requested, an application as well as the curriculum needs to be submitted so that we can vet it out and a committee comes together to ensure that it meets the rigor and the needs of the school. The other thing that we've done is we put together a document. So if Stansberry has gone ahead and gotten an approval for a class, Tooele High School can look and say, hey, I want that class. And now we have the curriculum in a place where we can share it. So it's in its infancy. It's our first year. It's going well. I think the hardest thing is a time frame. I think our schools want to be able to, at any given time, choose to put a new course forward. So I think we've got a couple of bumps along the way with that, but I think we're doing well. The next thing I want to talk about is AP. I have the pleasure of working with these professionals, and they're pretty amazing. And what I wanted to share with you is just some data points. You'll see on the left-hand side, those are the classes that we currently offer in the district. Some classes may not be in all schools, but those are the current offerings that we have. As we begin to grow this program, I really would like to start seeing that we have AP in Dugway, that we have AP in Wendover, because our kids can do it. We need to make sure that we have teachers trained to be able to deliver AP content, and we need to make sure that we're on point with the AP delivery that we have. So very excited this year. Brett Rydalch, who is here, has been very helpful in terms of getting me up to speed with AP, because AP was not under my supervision in the past. So he's been really helpful in terms of bringing an AP focus group together, and we've been working throughout the year in terms of what their needs are. You'll also notice up on the top, on the right-hand side, in terms of just some quick stats. How many students have been tested for CTE skills classes over the last couple of years? You'll see an increase there, as well as the percentage of those students who actually passed that class. So I think we're going in the right direction. The next, actually, before you move to the next slide, at the bottom, this is a big change for us, and that is we have goals. So for our AP program, we have very specific goals, and those are the 4 goals that we have. In the past, it was that we just offer AP classes and do a good job, but we need to look more globally, and we need to look at how we're growing our program. So you'll see that our 4 goals are to educate the public, collect information, align our message so that the message is the same at every single one of our schools, to plan and grow the program. So we want to start looking at pre-AP classes, perhaps in lieu of honors. We want to start looking at, are all our AP classes going to align to regents? There's lots of things that we need to be able to sit back and look at more of a global picture besides just at the individual schools. And the last thing and the most important thing is celebrating our students for what they're doing. So I think that's pretty exciting. The next one I'm not going to talk too much about because we talked about it last time, and that was the seal of biliteracy. The only thing I wanted to share with you is that since that meeting, I am in the process, and I'm working with Jamie Leitch and my DLI team in terms of creating like a directions that go with that application, because I think there's a little bit of confusion there. So I'm going to create a directions page that will go on our website. You'll see if you link there, it says coming soon, seal of biliteracy. So once it's up and running, you'll know it's up and running, and we'll have those documents on there. The next one. CTE. So I didn't give a ton of information here either because Christy has come in front of you guys and shared. But I thought this was really important information for us to be able to look at the amount of students enrolled. One of the things I wanted to make note of, and I know 5x5 isn't something that's on my agenda, but a lot of conversation has gone on about with 5x5, we'd see a great increase in the amount of students taking CTE courses. But if you notice, we've been doing it for the last 2 years. It's not a huge, great increase. What we did look at, and we noticed in the data, is it's a great increase until senior year. Then we lose kids signing up for CTE classes. And we don't know if it's because of parent release or any of those other things, but that's some of the data that we're looking at in terms of CTE. You'll see the amount of skills certificates awarded as well as completing pathways. We have some great present celebrations. I think we have Chef Johnson here. So good job. Yep. And he's gotten first place, which is pretty amazing. We have a local business that really wants to talk to him because they want to have some of our students work there. And we also had, I think it was at the Tooele FFA, got a 5-star award for their chapter at the convention last week, which is pretty exciting. The other thing I wanted to mention on the next slide is this is a pathway that we are in the midst of. Yeah, but we don't have the standards yet. But we are in the process and the talks of trying to find how we can go about doing this pathway. Weber is starting it. They're piloting it this year. Granite is looking at doing it. I've talked to both directors. Christy has been really a forerunner in trying to get out there and get as much information as we can on this. We're looking to try and pilot it at Grantsville High School first. Today, we just had a meeting because we were looking at what's expected of our students. Weber is starting this pathway in 9th grade. When I talked to Granite, they're starting it in 11th. When I looked at the content, I think we would scare all students away in 9th grade from ever being a teacher. Like, it's pretty intense in terms of theory, educational theory, and adolescence and maturity and all that stuff. I think for a 9th grader, I said to Christy, we need to discuss it because I think maybe a sophomore start might be a good idea. It would include 4 semester classes. And so if we started in sophomore year, we'd have actually 6 semesters for them to be able. So if for some reason they needed a course forgiveness, you remember that one, and they wanted to retake a course, they'd have enough time and flexibility to do that. So we are still in the process of taking a look at this, but we think that this is pretty exciting. The next one, DLI, again, you just heard from them as well. So I just wanted to share with you here just a little bit of background in terms of our pathway. We are looking to create a transition team to start talking more about what it looks like when we move DLI from 6th grade into junior. It looks completely different. And so we want to be able to make sure we have enough people at the table, maybe a junior high administrator, so that we can make sure that we are on the right path. Tooele and Grantsville will get the program before Stansbury just because of the way that it's situated. It may change, but right now that's what we're thinking in terms of where the programs are. The next slide is our district mentors. Again, some information that I think would be beneficial for you in terms of how many new teachers, how many second-year teachers, how many third-year teachers we have. And you'll see we did split up in terms of areas. So I do have one person who's assigned to each area. We do have some crossover though, like Wendover, Dugway, some of where we have a lot of turnover from time to time, and it also gives them an opportunity to travel together, and I feel a little bit safer about that when they go. So we do have a little bit of crossover there. One of the things, if you want to move to the next slide, Jim, one of the things that we did start to do is we wanted to help struggling teachers who already have a level 2 license. This is something that I think we just need to communicate better because we've only had about 2 or 3 principals take advantage of that. And I'm sure we have more level 2 teachers who probably do need some additional supports. So I think it's just a matter of making sure that our principals are aware that there's another avenue for teachers who may need just that additional classroom support.
And if, Tricia,
Yeah.
if I could just add, Madam President, this is based off of that program from Salt Lake where they combine not just their new teachers in the I program, but existing teachers, any level 2 licenses that need that support. And so we're just getting started into that. That was an idea, if you'll remember, that came from, I think, 2 years ago at the USBA when several of us heard that presentation from Salt Lake School District. So kudos to Trish for implementing it here in the district.
Yeah, it's actually a really good thing too, because I think it lets teachers know that at the end of 3 years, it's not like they're forgotten. We don't drop you like a hot potato and you're like, you're on your own. It's not like there's like at the end of the 3rd year, everything is perfect, right? We still struggle. They do a ton of professional development, and as I said, it'll be really interesting for them if they get this grant to be able to integrate this professional development element in outside of our Title II funds. They do a lot of our professional learning series as well, and they also help a lot in human resources with their sub-solutions. They come in and work with our substitutes in their training. So, yeah, they also do college placements and all that wonderful stuff that you can see that on there.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I know we've added some mentors, but are they there have been in the past quite a few new teachers that they were mentoring, and I thought they were feeling a little overwhelmed with the number of teachers. So by adding the level 2, are we adding more mentors, or is it kind of leveled off? Or,
well, we added one new mentor this year, and we started it this year. And since we haven't really had that tap into it, we are not feeling that. They're not coming to me and saying, oh my goodness, I'm overwhelmed. We do have a new evaluation form that we're using for instructional coaches and mentors. The newest mentor I shadowed them for a morning. This week I'm shadowing another one. I go to the schools, I see how they interact with the teachers, we talk about what we see. So we do that visit together. They have not come to me and told me that they feel that it's an overburden. I will tell you that growing it, if we were to grow going forward, what I would really like is a mentor who is a CTE teacher, possibly one who's coming from industry. Because although our mentors are phenomenal, it's a totally different ball game when you have a teacher that comes from an industry setting and all of a sudden is expected to know all the pedagogy, the ins and outs of how schools run. And so if I were to be able to add to that, I would probably add somebody who's CTE focused. The next one is our instructional coaches. Lots of information there in terms of how we're using them. I will tell you, I do have a plan that I presented to the executive staff in terms of ways that we can modify this program. We're going to wait on that because we need to see how things shake out with all the legislative sessions that have gone and our funding. One thing is very clear. The intent of having our instructional coaches is through the K-3 reading program, which is now SB 194 and has changed. The reality is, if you look at our data, how we're using them is not working. I met with them this week. I told them that it was of no disrespect. They do amazing things at their schools, but they're not doing what a coach would do for the amount of time that we need them to do it. And so we do need to look at SB 194. We need to look at our current model, because if we're going to change the way our reading scores look, we need to change how we do business. So that being said, it is something that has been on the forefront, but I think we do need to see how things shake out and how we can create an infrastructure to really be able to help these kids.
We've looked at other district models who actually have, in areas have certain specialty, like K-3 literacy coaches and maybe math coaches, and we're thinking about that we like coaching and supporting teachers that way, but we need it not just at K-3 but at all of our schools. For example, Stansbury High School, Mrs. War, who came from elementary, believed in coaching, so she put some of her FTE into coaching. We're able to do that at some schools, less at others, but we want to be more consistent. We may look at the Davis model, where their coaches serve for 3 to 4 years and then go back into the classroom and kind of rotate out as a learning experience for teachers to get that leadership opportunity. So there's several things we're talking about, maybe tightening up the job description, and so that they're not doing assistance principal duty things, you know, they're doing more
They're-
instructional coaching.
And they're doing great things, and that's why I say it's of no disrespect. They do a lot for our EL population, which is not a part of their coaching responsibilities. They do a lot to help
Testing.
they do testing. They do a lot to help out with lunch duties and this because it's an extra set of hands, and the need is there. But the reality is then maybe we fund that through trust lands and we get a coach that actually coaches. So I think that there's things that we need to have some crucial conversations about with that. So if you look on the next slide, you'll just see the 2017, 2018. This actually came from my presentation. I don't have what I see going forward right now because until I have more details, I don't want to upset the apple cart if there's not a reason to upset the apple cart at this time. But there are some changes. We did institute testing teams this year where they buddied up with 2 schools, and the reason behind that is we wanted continuity in terms of rate or reliability when giving dibbles and those types of things. But the other thing that we wanted to do was a lot of our teachers stopped instruction to do the testing. And so we went weeks without, or days, or whatever, without instruction because they were doing this testing. So by having teams, our teachers can continue to teach, and these teams can pull the students out to be able to assess them. So that was a big change this year, as well as a new coaching log that they have, and the fact that they partner quite a bit with our mentors now. So when I meet with instructional coaches pretty much every month, the mentors come as well. So it's more that we're not separate, we're together, and we build on each other's strengths for that. And they've been doing some fabulous PLSs as well, which gets you to the next slide, and this is something new as well, and that was the professional learning series. This is also on our website. It was a slow start. I think as the year goes on, the momentum's getting better. I will tell you, secondary doesn't seem to be grasping onto it, and that's okay if their needs are being met at their school. This is purely to meet a need. Our elementary tends to gravitate towards it. I think within my department, it's a little bit easier because I can ask my instructional coaches to do some PLSs. I can ask my DLI folks to do some DLI-specific PLSs, those types of things. I think April 16th, we're going to add a new one because 2 of my people have been trained on MIDAS, which is the new system that the state is using to track professional development, and I think they're going to do a PLS for principals so that they can see what it's like. So I think this is something worth continuing. I just think we need to maybe tighten it. This is our first year of piloting it, but I do think that it is serving a need. And the last one, I think is the last one, is the grading policy. You'll see all of the dates that we have met so far this year. It's been pretty intensive. I have to say I really enjoy the team that I'm working with. Even Jeff Wyatt. And we have had some really intense conversation. I will be meeting with Dolene, TEA president and vice president, I believe, next week to review this with them. My hope is to have some feedback with them and then be able to bring this to you at a board meeting maybe in April and May. I think the big crux of this is a philosophical change that we grade based on competency and student performance and not based on behavior. And I think that's going to be a really hard shift for some of our staff. We saw it even in our group. We all got there, but some kicking and screaming, but we're all there. So I think that will be a really positive thing for us when we talk about rigor and we talk about what it is we're doing with those minutes that we have those kids in front of us. And so with that, I just thank you for the opportunity to be able to share with you the great things that are happening in teaching and learning. So if you have any questions for me.
You're awesome. Yeah,
Aw,
you're awesome.
thanks.
That was
That's
a
super
great
sweet.
presentation. Will we be heading towards a standard space grading or?
That's a great question, and I will tell you the answer is no. No, and let me explain why. I think that we could eventually get there, but we are struggling even with understanding that we should be grading based on performance and not on behavior. I think we have to get the mindset to performance before we can even get to the standard. We did present this in leadership, and there were questions that were like, how do I assess performance? I mean, if we aren't sure how to do that to begin with, I think it would be very difficult for us to move to a standards-based. So I think this is more baby steps to be able to get there. So if we can get to the mindset here, I think that would be a natural progression. But I would say we probably need a couple years to get this solid first before moving on.
Probably baby steps, but we are going to experiment with standards-based, not necessarily grading, but the whole standards
Grading on the standard.
Well, there are already
That's-
some teachers
yes.
doing
At
that.
the you know, as we
High school.
visited Innovations High School and we looked at what they're doing, which is essentially, you know, standards-based and competency-based learning, that kind of a thing, and early graduation and associate's degrees. So we're going to explore and push the limit of innovation in that area, but we just don't believe that we're there yet as a district. So, you know, we'll make this step and get really solid with our grading and come up with that philosophy that is really student-centered. And then
And our plan is also to work with Marie as well. And we were talking about maybe doing some videos and doing some interviews and those types of things, because we learned from the homework guidelines, the rollout just was really shaky. And so even though it may seem like it's taking a while for us to get to you, it's just because we want to do it the right way and a solid way, which is, I think, what we need, that solid foundation before because there are going to be questions, and we need to make sure that even our leaders understand what's expected through the policy. So, any other questions? Fantastic.
Great,
do you have any
you.
Jersey girl advice for us before you leave? Before you end?
Okay, 7.3 capital outlay 2018-19 first read, Steve West. And thanks for the pictures, Mike Garcia.
Mike, did you take any drone footage to get some of these pictures? Mike's our drone pilot.
He has been busy helping me out with this, and I appreciate everything he's done. So, opportunity to take a first look at it. We've collected the data. We're well over $10 million worth of requests this year in items, and we've tried to prioritize those. We did a little bit more prioritizing yesterday. We had originally left some room in the budget for safety and security this year. Yesterday we added a line item on our general budgets for safety and security on it. Some of the requests we think that will fall into that were highlighted in orange on our spreadsheet so that we can track some of those and keep those. I added a new column to it this year. It's called Safety and Security on the far right side. And it's to look at front-end security of our buildings and what we can do there. So we have talked about it. We're meeting on it. We're looking into it. And we're going to put some great efforts forward this year and helping to make our buildings safer and more secure. So some of the big projects that we're looking at this year is there's a safety with some asphalt in the playground out at Anna Smith, and we need to replace that. We also need to replace a rooftop unit at Early Learning Center, the air conditioning there, some snow catchers on a canopy at Grantsville Elementary School to help them out, and then several additional cameras and additional systems in buildings that do not have any cameras in them to look at moving forward to help out with that. Some safety equipment in Wendover and some additional exit signs and stuff to help out safety-wise with that. And then we're also looking to continuing in on that unfunded mandate of CO detectors in all our buildings. We're 2 years into it. We've got quite a few done, and we're still moving forward, and our schedule looks like we'll make it in the 5-year time frame we have. So first look, lots of slides and lots of information, but I would see if there's any questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Just a comment, Steve and Mike, excellent job, and Kevin, and of course we have a committee that looks at these, and we get input. We always have more requests than we have money. The budget is roughly, last year's was about 4.7 million, and that's about where we're at again this year on requests that were approved, and there's some wiggle room there, especially if we can catch Lark in a really good mood. But you know, we also have some issues that later And it's not hard to catch Lark in a good mood. He's
I was going to
he's
say,
good
I've
mood
never
most of
seen
the
him in a
time.
bad mood.
But we have we haven't talked about some of the bonding issues. That will come as we update our 20-year plan, which certainly will include, with our recent discussions, when we look at our 4 oldest buildings and we look at the conditions. Of course, Vernon was in greatest need, followed closely by Ibapaw, and then followed by Wendover High School and then West Elementary. So, we have that as well as the new growth areas that we're trying to balance and the bond issues on some of that new building. One thing that we didn't put in here was we had talked at one point in time about Willow Elementary and the issue of, we think we can buy some time with Willow Elementary if we consider, and right now I've asked Mr. Moeller and the elementary principals to look into the numbers, but if we considered moving the 6th grade from Grantsville and Willow into the junior high where we have capacity, we could buy some time, allowing us to do some other projects and have some room, because we basically would have free up 5 classrooms. So we specifically didn't say because we have talked about doing an expansion at Willow, but we may be better served to move those kids temporarily and then build a new school in Grantsville Elementary, and then realign. We'll have to mess with boundaries a little bit, but we felt like when we started looking at the cost of expanding Willow that maybe we could there's another way to skin a cat kind of a thing, and we could get to the same end but save the taxpayer some dollars. So we will be bringing you some study information on what it would look like to move 6th graders into Grantsville. We can't do that in any of our other schools because we just don't have room at the junior high, but in Grantsville that is a possibility.
That's awesome.
Sense. Good info.
Anybody else have questions? Concerns?
I know when they did that before, they kept them separate from the older kids. Would we try and do that? Like they had different passing times, and
I'm certain they could plan that. I've just asked Charlie to get with those elementary principals and to look at it and see, what the room space would look like, physical space, and what the schedule would look like, and we'll bring that back to you before we make any decisions.
Okay. That's a big they don't know.
That's right. In other words, I don't know.
parents will be concerned, so if we could
the middle school
isolate
concept
them a
of
little
6,
bit
7, and 8 is not
That's not new.
foreign. It's not new concept, and I'm sure there's a way to do it to keep them separate. I'm sure there's also some fears that are unfounded that depending on what physical facilities are there, I think there's going to be some teachers that are going to have to be teaching not just 7 and 8, but teaching 6 as well. It would be very difficult to move 6th graders there and keep the homeroom, you have an individual teacher concept versus actually, we'll have to decide whether they actually, switch classes. But I think we would try to keep the 6th grade together as they switch classes. But the big question is, would you switch to a middle school model for 6th grade, or would you keep them in their homeroom and transfer their teachers there?
When they did it before, they kept the homeroom classroom.
There's probably pros and cons
Yeah, I was gonna say,
to both. We'll have to evaluate
It warrants
that.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, we'll move forward and we'll bring it back to you next month. So,
Okay.
all right.
We'll be excited.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Steve and Mike. Mr. Ernst is back.
I'm back for
Follow-up
another
information.
performance. Yes, I'll be back next month too.
I hope you're excited about that.
I'm always excited.
You are. You're awesome.
You surprised I came back? Yeah.
Well, notice you didn't come back with the proposal.
No proposal this time. This is just information. Yeah. Okay, so this is pretty simple stuff. I don't have much to add from what's in the packet. First, I guess let's look at the chart first. I don't know if Jim wants to pull that up. So now the other one, Jim. Yeah, let's look at the other one. So this just shows, so specifically we're looking at Rush Valley here. I found this interesting. So there at the very bottom, we see that we have 83 students from Rush Valley that live in the Rush Valley area. They attend 9 different schools altogether. I had no idea. You see that the majority of them go to, well, it kind of depends on the grade level, but totals, Dugway, Tooele High, Settlement Canyon, and Grantsville Elementary. So that's our, and then you can see the Rush Valley, Vernon, Dugway, Skull Valley are also listed there. On the busing, not a lot of buses go to the different schools. And it's interesting also to note the high number of students who don't bus. And the reason why, what I'm starting to find out is that generally they go to an out-of-boundary school. So their boundary school at the elementary level right now is Settlement Canyon Elementary. We do have a bus that goes from Rush Valley into Dugway, and that started, Mr. White, with 3, and we're now up to almost 20 total that ride that. And more ride it home than ride it to school because they'll get a ride with their parent or whatever. And so the other students, or the students that go to other out-of-boundary schools, generally the reason why is because a parent works at the school, parent works in that city, or they have relatives in that city that provide after-school childcare. And so that's why we see a lot of the Rush Valley people going other ways. So also just, I thought this was interesting. This isn't on the chart, but I spoke with Mr. Porter at the bus garage. Currently, we have 2 buses coming in from South Rim. So that's going to be, that's potentially close to 100 students. And then one that comes in from Stockton, and they go to Settlement Canyon Elementary. So just interesting that the growth there at South Rim, we knew that was growing. So that's the bus situation in South Rim. So next steps for me and what I'll be reporting on next board meeting is we're sending out a stakeholder survey for Rush Valley parents to kind of get their feel on boundaries. And honestly, I just don't know how it's going to come back just because right now they're just so spread out, So Justin is helping me with that. Justin Rasmussen is helping me with that. We hope to have that out the first part of next week. It'll be open for about 2 weeks. That'll give us time just before April board meeting to get all of our numbers together and present to you. So questions for me on any South County items?
It's helpful to see the
interesting.
numbers.
We have the
I don't
bus
think we've
numbers,
seen
yeah.
those, so
That's really-
it's helpful.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you. I'll be back again next month.
Good work.
More information. Thank you.
Okay, action item 8.1, revised policy 4015, employee retirement incentives, post-retirement insurance, and other benefits, first read. Mr. Christensen.
So, what you have in front of you is kind of closing the loop of what we started years ago with the GASB 45 and having to fund retirement benefits, things like that. So the board had created some policies to sunset those benefits, and this is kind of closing the loop on that. So in a sense, in the what you see in front of you, I meet with all of the retirees as they prepare to go into retirement, part with the district. And with that being said, there's still almost every year there's more confusion about, well, I think I've got the years, but there's some of the language in there that was created years ago that still causes that confusion, whereas the last person that was eligible for that post-65 insurance benefit has retired. So therefore we need to, in my opinion, sunset this policy. So any questions? Yes.
1D references the district post-65 health insurance benefit that we just crossed out.
You gotta speak louder. I'm not hard to hear. Be closer to that mic.
I'm just referencing, do you see where I'm at? 1D, the very last sentence. References the section we just crossed out.
Okay.
So I just, as we make that change, I think I'm not sure how it should read, Terry, but there is a reference to that.
Well, okay, so this is the post-retirement cash benefit up through 65. So Lark and I will do some analysis on that to make sure.
No, it's the retiree. Maybe 1D.
Right above
Under
the
E,
part you're
it's under
crossing
health
out.
insurance.
Oh, E1D, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right there where you see it.
Right
Right
above where
above
it's
it.
crossed out.
In the event that a retiree qualifies for the lifetime insurance benefit.
The spouse will be covered under.
I agree. I think we could probably scratch it out as well.
Yep.
It's
We'll
just,
double check it.
It will still cause confusion because then they're going to be looking for a policy that doesn't
Correct.
exist.
Yep.
Correct.
So we can make sure that happens.
Good catch.
Yeah, that's a really good catch.
I wanted to add that we did reach out to the union groups because we didn't want this to come out as you're scratching
Yeah.
something, you're getting rid of a benefit that was promised years ago kind of thing. We wanted to make it clear that our only intent here was to clarify those meetings when Terry meets with retirees.
Okay.
That's correct.
Not that we would discontinue the program, wanted to stress that.
So are you thinking this needs a second read?
Yeah, we can make that changes to that one section
Okay.
there. And,
If you, or if
back
you
for
can
a second.
change it, I don't care.
We can as well.
I mean, if you can do it here, I don't.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess whatever you want. Any other questions or anything? Otherwise, we can entertain a motion.
I move that we move policy 4015, employee retirement incentives, post-retirement insurance and other benefits for a second read.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Carol and seconded by Karen to move policy 4015, employee retirement incentives, post-retirement insurance, and other benefits forward for a second read. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Okay, new policy, employer phased retirement. Lark.
I saw this all last time, so I'll keep it brief. The only thing I did was took the model policy and tweaked the language that I felt like would be more consistent with our school district. You know, they usually have some generic language in there, so I as I read through it, tried to make those changes for you. So, and to put it in our format. But that's all the policy is.
I have one question, but I gotta find it.
Okay.
I can't remember where it says it, but at some point it says it basically would be nice to let us know as soon as possible. Is that the best wording, or do we really need a date in there?
For them informing us of their intent to.
Yeah.
Well, is it 2A? Is strongly encouraged to discuss this possibility with the employee
Oh, yeah, with as much advance notice as possible. Is that, I mean, I don't care.
Harry, there
But-
is a deadline in another policy, isn't there, that relates to this?
We put the notice up for those intending to retire, the early, we put the money, tied the money to that. So it would be more helpful if we had a date out there in the future, rather than as soon as possible, because some people as soon as possible might be June 5th.
Right.
Might be 2 days before they plan on retiring, right?
We could definitely look at that. I do know that URS has said that if it's outside that 120-day window, and I've got to remember where that would be at, it does clearly say that it won't be allowed at that point. I mean, they have 120 days from their retirement date to enter into this contract and agreement. Of course, they got to have time for them to meet with Terry to work out an agreement, to get URS approval and all that as well.
So it's not as if I'm gonna retire today and I have to start working tomorrow. I have a window of time. That's what you're saying?
Correct.
So it doesn't necessarily matter if they retired mid-year or end of the year or whatever then.
And so I think that language, I mean, we could definitely look at a date, but is to give them as much, because realizing that they have to enter in this agreement and the strict rules behind it, they need to give enough time for us to work out those details. Terry. So,
Does it say that? I don't remember reading that it says that specifically. Well, I guess we're going for a second read anyway.
there
right?
is under 5A, the retiree shall begin phased retirement employment. but no later, continues on, but no later than 120 days after their retirement date. At that point, I've been told that they will not accept them.
Is there, but would it be valuable to add a specific, you must notify us at least 120 days or 150 days or 90 days before you plan to retire? I mean,
Well, that would be the beginning of the school year.
well, I'm just, well, 3 months. I mean, I'm just thinking,
Last week of school, they decide they've had it, they want to retire.
right, but I think that this phased retirement, if they're gonna do that, I think that we ought to, don't just say, well, as soon as you know. I think that to be eligible, you need to tell us by. And even if you want to put a date, you know, by February 1st or March 1st, or at least they kind of know. If you're gonna, I don't know how you could plan. It's kind of like early notice when we're asking people, you know, if I'm going to retire. This is a win. This is kind of a we both win kind of situation, but in order for us to plan around that, I think it's a reasonable expectation to say, and Terry, whatever that date is, but I think, and maybe it's not days, but just by March 1st or February 15th or whatever works for you in your retirement, in the recruitment process.
Already. Because we're hiring already too, right? So if we are hiring right now, we would want to know if somebody was able to stay and work, it would be like
Their
this,
intent.
right?
So
I don't know. Maybe I'm out of. Maybe I'm.
That's why I would
but-
just go January 15th. I mean, just pick a date, Terry, whatever that is. But I would put that, not just put as soon as. They can still retire. They just can't retire with this, you know, in place.
Can we do that?
You could. I just hesitate with the date because, frankly, they could choose any. I understand that that makes sense for our typical school year in hiring, but they could retire anytime throughout the year if they wanted to enter into this agreement, and that starts the 120-day window. You see what I'm saying? That they have to have this agreement in place. So my personal opinion is that maybe you have it within so many days of your retirement date, but they could choose to go in November, and it could get approved.
But if they're choosing to go in November,
That's not the problem.
that's
or
mid-school
July.
year.
You know.
It does make it very difficult to staff. If you're a teacher. Yeah.
You might start the school year and become very ill and have an illness that's not going to allow you to, so you decide it's better to retire.
Well, and that's fine. They can retire. The point of this is that they're going to be working half-time.
Yeah, it's a deadline, not
I
a
would
pre.
suggest that we reach out to some other districts that are doing this and have this policy, see what the language looks like, because we're doing a reading anyway, and see how people are treating it, and their experience with it.
Well, and we don't have to deal with it. You guys do. So whatever works for you, I don't, like I said, I don't care. It was just something that I thought of as I was reading it. So, yeah.
No, and I do interpret that clause after it says as soon as possible, as you're pointing out. That's under 2A. Up above it, it says prior to the retiree's retirement date, complete and submit all phased retirement forms. So they actually have to inform us before their retirement date.
Right.
Do all this. So
Okay. Well, we'll bring
how
it
many
forward.
school districts have it? I don't know because it relatively is new. I'm not saying we can't reach out and say, does anybody have this? But we will try and do our homework.
Talk amongst yourselves and decide what's best for you.
Okay.
Whatever works for you, Terry.
And maybe
Okay.
you'll get some feedback from when the policy's
motion.
out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I motion that we move this policy forward to a second reading.
I'll second it. Okay, it's been moved by Scott, seconded by Julia to move forward for a second reading, the new policy employer phased retirement. Is there discussion to that motion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, don't forget to be reading your books. Culturize. And
I motion we adjourn.
moved by Scott, seconded by Alan. We are adjourned. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks for coming. Drive safe back.